Why do so-called small parties always attack the Democratic Alliance? The DA often accuses small parties of going after its support base instead of working together to unseat the ANC, with party leader John Steenhuisen going so far as to refer to Rise Mzansi, the PA, NCC, and the Good Party as mercenaries whose aim is to unseat the DA in the Western Cape so that they can loot the province's budget. If you have been following the campaign of these and similar parties, you may have noticed that they do spend a disproportionate amount of time criticizing the DA's governance of the Western Cape and the city of Cape Town. The reason for this is simple. The likes of Action SA, BOSA, the PA and others are not competing with the ANC for votes. They are competing with the DA. You see, the vast majority of disgruntled ANC supporters either stop voting completely or they switch to a party like the EFF, which is ideologically similar to the ANC. Despite what the media and some politicians might tell you, there has never and will never be a mass exodus of ANC voters to more centrist or moderate parties. This fact is backed up by voting trends over the past 30 years. South African politics is broadly divided into two ideological blocks. Largest of these is what Robert Dagan from the Cape Independent calls the Charterists. Generally speaking, these parties believe in the values of the Freedom Charter. They tend to have a pan-Africanist, black nationalist, and socialist bend and support things like EWC and the NHI. Parties in this bloc include the ANC, EFF, PAC, Mkhonto weSizwe, COPE, UDM, and others. From 1994 to 2019, these parties have collectively gotten between 64 to 75% of the vote, the lion's share going to the ANC. The other ideological bloc is what I refer to as the liberals. These are not necessarily liberals in the American sense of the word, but in the true sense of the term. They believe in things like free markets, the rule of law, and individual rights. Think DA, Action SA, ACDP, Freedom Front Plus, NP and the NNP, the PA, among others. Collectively, their performance at the polls have been consistent since 1994, fluctuating only slightly. Here we can see both the Charterist and Liberal percentages in every election in our democratic dispensation. Both blocs have received consistent support at every general election since 1994. What that means is that Charterist voters are not switching over to Liberal parties and vice versa. If you're a Liberal or Charterist party, you need to woo voters from other parties within your respective bloc. Now, if you're a small Charterist party wanting to grow, your best bet is to try poach support from the ANC. And if you're a Liberal party, your only real option is to try steal votes from the DA, because it is impossible to understate how much the DA dominates this portion of the electorate. In fact, if you compare both the Liberal vote, including the DA, to just the percentage the DA has received since 2009, the lines practically overlap. Some parties claim that their aim is to target disaffected citizens who have stayed away from the polls in recent years. But to put it bluntly, that is a pie in the sky. Voter turnout has diminished at every election and there's no end to this trend in sight. Now, this isn't to say that opposition parties in the Western Cape don't have genuine grievances about the way the DA runs the province. The DA isn't perfect and people have the right to criticize them. But this doesn't change the fact that many opposition parties correctly view the DA and not the ANC as their main political opponent. This also isn't to say that Liberal parties don't attack the ANC. If you've been following the 2024 campaign of the PA, Action SA and others, you would have noticed that they do attack the ANC all the time. In fact, every party in South Africa that isn't the ANC criticizes the ANC. But when the likes of Herman Mashaba, Musi Mamani and Gayton McKenzie get on stage and talk about how the ANC has failed us, they know that they aren't winning over any ANC voters. All they are really doing is reminding their existing supporters why it is important to go out and vote on election day. In summary, I think parties like the PA and Action SA eating into the DA's electorate is a part of the broader trend of the fracturing of our political landscape. We have seen the EFF and other smaller parties eat into the ANC's electorate, and ultimately the DA faces the same fate. DA supporters might see this as a negative thing, but to me it signifies that our democracy is maturing as citizens start to vote for parties that truly resonate with them, instead of just voting for the least worst option.